The narrator's voice cuts through the quiet, soft, deliberate, and loaded with curiosity. No one expected the courtroom to explode that morning, not even Judge Caprio himself. The sound of heels clicking interrupts the stillness. Every head turns. A woman strides in, not hesitantly, not humbly, but with a confidence that borders on arrogance. Her designer coat catches the light. Her handbag could buy someone's monthly rent. Oversized sunglasses hide her eyes, but her smirk is unmistakable. The smirk of someone who's never heard the word no. She wasn't just another defendant. She was used to being obeyed, to bending rules instead of following them. The courtroom for her was just another stage, and she had every intention of stealing the spotlight. She takes her seat with a loud exhale, tapping her nails impatiently against the table. The bailiff reads out her name, listing multiple traffic violations: speeding, ignoring signals, reckless parking. Each charge is met with the same reaction: a smirk, a shrug, a faint roll of her eyes. The camera angle shifts, close up on Judge Caprio's expression. Calm, composed. He has seen arrogance before, but this woman radiates something more dangerous: entitlement. The courtroom murmurs softly, sensing her attitude. For some, the narrator says quietly, rules exist only for others. As the hearing begins, Judge Caprio's tone remains kind. He speaks slowly, giving her space to explain herself. But instead of remorse, her words drip with disdain. She tilts her head, raises an eyebrow, and lets out a scoff, a sound sharp enough to cut through the courtroom silence. The camera cuts to the audience: a young mother watching curiously, an elderly man shaking his head, a police officer stiffening beside the door. Every face reflects the same disbelief. Is she really speaking that way to Judge Caprio? Most people who stand before him carry nerves, fear, or guilt. But she carried none of that, only pride, only the belief that money, status, or charm could shield her from consequence. Then, in a single moment, everything shifts. Judge Caprio begins to explain the seriousness of her violations, his tone patient yet firm. But she cuts him off mid-sentence. Just a flick of her wrist, a wave of dismissal. She leans back, muttering something under her breath. It's meant to be quiet, a bitter insult, a whisper of contempt. But her microphone is still on. The words echo through the speakers. The courtroom freezes. For a moment, no one moves. No one breathes. Even Judge Caprio's pen, which had been resting calmly on the bench, still midair. What she thought was a private jab became a public revelation, a glimpse into her true character. The sound hangs heavy in the air, sharp, disrespectful, undeniable. The audience shifts uncomfortably. A man in the back shakes his head. A woman whispers softly, "Did she really just say that?" Judge Caprio doesn't speak. His face doesn't change. Only his eyes narrow slightly, as if weighing not just her words, but the life behind them, the kind of pain or pride that makes a person so blind. The camera zooms in slowly, her smirk faltering just for a second as she realizes what she's done. The narrator continues. In that instant, the courtroom was no longer a place for excuses. It became a mirror, and what she saw in it, she wasn't ready for. Music fades in, a deep, resonant hum that carries the weight of consequence. That morning, the narrator whispers, the entitled woman didn't just face a fine. She faced herself. The scene closes on a slow zoom toward Judge Caprio's calm face, patient yet piercing, as if justice itself is holding its breath. And with that, the story truly begins. The courtroom sits in uneasy silence. The echo of that single insult still lingers, heavy, cold, and unforgettable. A moment ago, she was untouchable. Now every pair of eyes is fixed on her. The camera pans slowly across the room, faces frozen in disbelief. The bailiff glances toward the bench, unsure whether to intervene. A mother in the back clutches her purse tighter, her expression caught between shock and pity. But Judge Caprio, he doesn't speak. Not yet. He sits perfectly still, his hands folded, his eyes calm but unblinking. The lens draws in close, soft light catching the fine lines of experience etched across his face. His silence says more than any words could. The narrator's voice lowers. In this room, silence isn't emptiness. It's judgment waiting to be spoken. The woman shifts uncomfortably. Her confidence flickers for a moment, then she forces a small laugh. The kind of laugh that hides fear behind pride. Relax, she mutters to herself. It's just a traffic ticket. But deep down, she knows it's not just a ticket anymore. The room's energy has changed. The light feels colder now. Even the hum of the ceiling fan seems louder, sharper, like the universe itself waiting for her next move. The judge finally speaks. His voice is calm, controlled, yet heavy with disappointment. Ma'am, would you please repeat what you just said? She hesitates. A close-up captures the faint tremor in her lips. For the first time, the mask begins to crack. I didn't mean it, she says, fumbling. It was just a joke. Judge Caprio nods slowly, but his gaze doesn't soften. The narrator continues. For decades, he'd seen anger, guilt, fear, but arrogance disguised as humor? That, he knew, often hides a deeper truth. The camera angle shifts low, looking up at the bench, giving Judge Caprio an almost ethereal authority. His black robe catches the courtroom light. His glasses glint faintly. His posture radiates patience carved by years of understanding humanity at its worst and best. He leans forward slightly, voice quieter now, almost fatherly. This court isn't a stage, young lady, he says gently, and I am not your audience. The words land like thunder wrapped in silk. The woman's smirk fades entirely. Her eyes dart toward the door, maybe searching for escape, maybe for the comfort of superiority she once felt. But there's no escape here, just truth. Every wall in that room had seen tears, regret, even forgiveness, but rarely had it witnessed pride unraveling before justice. Judge Caprio begins recounting her violations one by one. The screen splits subtly. Images of her car running a red light, parking in a no-stop zone, driving through a crosswalk as a child stepped back in fear. Each flash of footage tightens the tension. With every count, the camera cuts between the judge's calm, firm eyes and the woman's growing discomfort. Her posture shrinks. Her chin lowers. She avoids his gaze. She came in laughing, the narrator whispers, but now laughter had turned into silence, the silence of realization. Judge Caprio pauses again. His next words come softer, almost pained. Ma'am, I've seen people come here with nothing. No money, no status, no hope. Yet they show respect. You have everything, and still, you choose contempt. Tell me, what lesson did life skip for you? The room is completely still. Even the camera seems to hold its breath. Tears begin to gather in her eyes. Subtle, hesitant. Not from sadness, but from shame. The mask of privilege is gone. All that remains is a woman who's never truly been held accountable. In that moment, she wasn't an entitled woman. She was just human, fragile, scared, and finally, seen. Judge Caprio sighs deeply. His eyes glisten, not from anger, but disappointment, the kind that feels heavier than punishment. Justice, he says slowly, isn't always about fines or laws. Sometimes it's about teaching someone how to be decent again. The courtroom remains silent as he finishes writing his notes. The camera focuses on his pen, the soft scratching sound filling the emptiness. Then he looks up. Ma'am, he says finally, your fine is reduced, but your attitude must change. He gives her a gentle nod, not of approval, but of hope. Sometimes the greatest verdicts aren't spoken in anger, but in compassion. And that morning in a small courtroom in Providence, justice wasn't just served, it was felt. The music swells, soft piano, tinged with melancholy and hope. The woman wipes her eyes as she steps away, the door closing softly behind her. The storm had passed, the narrator whispers, but its echo would follow her forever. The air in the courtroom is thick, not with anger, but with reflection. The sound of the gavel hasn't struck yet, but everyone knows the moment is coming. Judge Caprio sits back in his chair, his hands gently resting on the desk, his eyes fixed on the woman standing before him. She's no longer the arrogant figure who walked in draped in designer clothes and disdain. Her shoulders have dropped. The defiance is gone. Her eyes, once cold, now shimmer with regret. The narrator's voice is soft, deliberate. For years, Judge Caprio had seen justice tested, hearts broken, and hope restored. But this was different. Today's lesson wasn't about punishment. It was about redemption. The camera zooms in on the judge's hands, old, steady, and kind. His black robe flows like a shadow of wisdom. The soft courtroom light falls across his face, highlighting the mix of sorrow and understanding in his eyes. He looks at her for a long moment before speaking. His tone is low, almost fatherly. You know, when I was your age, I watched my father work hard every single day. He never had much, but he had respect for himself and for others. That's something money can't buy. The woman looks down. A tear slips quietly down her cheek. The camera catches it mid-fall, glistening in the courtroom light before it lands on the desk in front of her. Judge Caprio continues, his voice steady but full of emotion. This court isn't meant to embarrass you. It's meant to remind all of us, that decency is not a luxury, it's a choice. The courtroom is silent. Even the bailiff, standing firm by the door, blinks back tears. The narrator adds, his words weren't sharp like the law. They were gentle, the kind that cut deeper because they came from the heart. The judge sighs softly and looks down at the citation papers. He slowly sets them aside and folds his hands once more. Ma'am, he says, I could fine you hundreds of dollars. I could add to your record, but what would that teach you? She lifts her head, surprised. Her voice trembles. I don't know, Your Honor. The judge nods. Exactly. Justice isn't about making you pay. It's about helping you see. You came here angry, but maybe now you'll leave with understanding. The camera shifts. A side profile captures both of them in the same frame. The old judge, calm and wise, and the young woman, humbled and broken. Soft golden light filters through the window behind them, bathing the courtroom in warmth. For the first time, she wasn't being lectured. She was being seen, not as a criminal, but as a person who'd lost her way. Judge Caprio finally reaches for his pen again. The scratching sound on the paper feels rhythmic, almost sacred. He writes something down, then looks up with a small, gentle smile. Here's what we'll do, he says. Your fine will be dismissed, but I want you to take that same amount of money and do something good with it. Feed someone. Help someone. Remind yourself that the world doesn't revolve around what we have, but what we give. The woman's lips part, trembling again. She nods, wiping her eyes. I will, Your Honor. I promise. The judge smiles kindly, his eyes glistening. Promises are easy, he says, but keeping them? That's where character is built. In that single moment, the courtroom wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about purpose, the kind that reaches beyond the walls of law and touches the human soul. The woman steps back, her once proud footsteps now soft and careful. The camera follows her as she turns toward the exit. Each step feels like a step away from her old self and towards something new. The music shifts, a slow, emotional piano piece that mirrors the bittersweet transformation happening in silence. Judge Caprio watches her go. His expression is thoughtful, almost wistful. He looks down at the empty chair where she stood moments ago. Some people come here seeking mercy, the narrator says softly, but sometimes mercy finds them first. A faint smile crosses the judge's lips, not of pride, but of peace. He leans back slightly, closes the file, and whispers under his breath, That's justice. The camera slowly pulls back, showing the entire courtroom again. The sunlight streams through the tall windows, falling gently on the bench, the flags, and the empty chairs. The atmosphere feels lighter now, not because the case ended, but because something inside that courtroom changed. As the narrator closes, in a world quick to judge and slow to forgive, one man reminded us all that justice without compassion is just punishment. But compassion, that's what makes it pure. The music swells, emotional strings rising behind the final shot of Judge Caprio, writing quietly at his desk as the screen fades to black. The heavy doors of the courtroom close behind her with a soft echo. For a moment, the woman just stands there, motionless, her reflection shimmering faintly in the glass. The noise of the city hums outside, yet everything feels strangely quiet. Sometimes the greatest trials don't end with a verdict. They begin after one. She takes off her sunglasses, the same pair she once wore as a shield of arrogance. This time, her eyes aren't cold or proud. They're searching, vulnerable, human. The morning sun filters through the courthouse steps, washing her face in warmth. She looks up, blinking against the light, as if seeing the world clearly for the first time. The camera pans slowly to the bustling street, people crossing, vendors shouting, cars honking. Ordinary life continues, but something inside her has shifted. Her inner monologue, through the narrator's voice, begins to unfold. All my life, I thought power came from how loud you spoke or how much you owned. But today, one man proved me wrong, without raising his voice once. The scene transitions to a small diner later that day. She sits by the window, watching a young mother counting change to pay for her child's meal. The woman pauses, her eyes soften. Without hesitation, she reaches into her purse, pulls out a few bills, and quietly covers their tab. The mother turns surprised. The woman just smiles and nods. No words, no recognition, just kindness. The same money that once bought arrogance now bought compassion, and with it came something money never could: peace. Cut to a soft montage, filmed in slow motion. She volunteers at a shelter, handing out warm meals. She helps an old man cross a busy street. She visits her elderly neighbor and repairs a broken fence. Each act feels simple, yet profound. With every good deed, the weight she once carried begins to fade. Meanwhile, in the courtroom, Judge Caprio finishes another long day. He sets his glasses aside, stretches his hands, and glances at the file from that morning. Her case file. A small smile touches his lips. He doesn't know how her story ends, but deep down, he believes she found her way. The narrator's tone grows warm, hopeful. He never sought to punish the world's mistakes, only to guide them. And sometimes that was enough. The next scene returns to the woman. Weeks later, she's standing at a park, watching children play. Her posture is relaxed now, her face softer, her spirit lighter. A passerby accidentally bumps into her, spilling coffee on her sleeve. Once she would have exploded in rage. Now she simply smiles and says, "It's okay." That small moment, that gentle reaction, becomes her quiet redemption. True change doesn't announce itself with thunder. It whispers through patience, empathy, and grace. As the music swells, she looks toward the horizon, the same sun setting behind the courthouse dome in the distance. Her inner voice returns one last time. That day, I walked into a courtroom with pride and walked out with purpose. The camera pans upward, fading from her silhouette to the golden sky. Soft piano and strings rise as the final words appear on screen. Justice isn't about power, it's about humanity. And in the echo of that courtroom, the lesson still lives, in every heart willing to listen. It had been months since that unforgettable day, the day the entitled woman's anger shattered, and Judge Caprio's compassion pieced it back together. The courthouse looked the same, marble floors polished, flags still fluttering softly, and that familiar plaque above the bench reading City of Providence. But this time, the energy was different. The narrator's voice enters, gentle and reflective. Some people walk into court to defend themselves. Others return to say thank you. As the courtroom door opens, the camera focuses on a pair of elegant heels stepping forward. The same heels she wore that morning, now polished but grounded. The woman walks in, head held high, not with pride, but gratitude. Judge Caprio looks up, slightly surprised. The murmurs in the courtroom quiet down. She waits patiently until it's her turn, holding a small brown envelope close to her chest. The narrator continues. Once she saw this room as a battlefield. Today she sees it as the place that saved her. When she finally stands before the bench, there's no arrogance left. Her voice trembles slightly, but her tone is steady. She says she didn't come to fight. She came to thank the man who showed her what justice truly meant. She tells the court how that single moment of mercy changed her life, how she started volunteering at shelters, reconnecting with her family, and rebuilding her sense of purpose. The camera cuts between her trembling hands and Judge Caprio's calm, kind expression, the same warmth that once disarmed her fury. She opens the envelope and gently places a photograph on the stand. It's a picture of her and a group of children at a community center, smiling, laughing, alive. Judge Caprio looks at it quietly, and for a moment, even the air feels still. The narrator's voice lowers, reverent. He had handed her a second chance, and she turned it into a lifetime of change. Judge Caprio leans forward slightly, his tone fatherly, heartfelt. Though we don't hear the exact words, his gesture says it all. A small nod, a gentle smile, and that unmistakable look of pride that only he can give. As she steps back, the courtroom erupts, not in noise but in emotion. A few jurors wipe their eyes. Even the police officer who once stood beside her looks humbled. The woman turns one last time toward the bench, her eyes glistening. She mouths two words silently, "Thank you." The music swells, strings and piano. The camera pans upward, capturing Judge Caprio's face illuminated in golden light, then fades into the courthouse seal. The narrator delivers the final line, slow, sincere, and unforgettable. Mercy may not erase mistakes, but sometimes it writes a better ending. Text fades in across the screen. In a world that often chooses punishment, one man continues to choose compassion. Then your cinematic outro rolls, the Justice Will Win style CTA. If this story moved you, remember, justice with heart is justice that heals. Subscribe for more true stories of hope and humanity.